The Krex Dominion fleet hung silently in Earth's orbit, their vast, silver ships blotting out the stars. The vessels gleamed with an otherworldly perfection, their surfaces smooth and seamless, designed to instill awe and fear. For the Krex, a species of cold logic and unyielding efficiency, this invasion was routine. Humanity was just another obstacle, another primitive civilization to subdue in their quest for universal dominance. Inside the command center of the lead vessel, Commander Zorvac reviewed the transmissions intercepted from Earth. The holographic screen displayed snippets of human culture, chaotic debates, acts of war, moments of joy, and an incomprehensible abundance of emotion. He focused on one peculiar detail, the repeated presence of rhythmic vocalizations. Singing, as humans called it. It was illogical, wasteful. A meaningless outpouring of sound. "This species is bizarre," Zorvac stated to his officers, his voice devoid of inflection. "Emotion-driven. Inefficient. They will crumble before us." The officers nodded in agreement, their trust in Krex's superiority absolute. Their species had conquered dozens of worlds, each campaign executed with precision. The Krex were not accustomed to resistance, especially not from such a fragmented species. They viewed humans as erratic, a weakness that made them easy prey. A transmission crackled across the Krex communication network, emanating from the planet below. It wasn't a plea for mercy or an attempt to negotiate. It was sound, rhythmic, layered, and alien to their ears. The humans were singing. Zorvac frowned. "Analyze this transmission." Moments later, a Krex technician spoke. "It is noise, Commander. Repeating patterns with tonal variations. Primitive." Zorvac dismissed it with a wave of his clawed hand. "Then they have no defenses left. Begin the operation. Subdue the planet." The fleet moved into position, sleek ships descending through the atmosphere, casting ominous shadows over cities and military installations. Energy weapons powered up, their hum vibrating through the air. On the ground, human forces braced for the assault, their soldiers standing in formation. But something was strange. The humans weren't silent, cowering, or panicking as expected. Instead, their voices rose together, filling the air with harmony and defiance. A cadence of strength and unity echoed across the battlefield. The sound was powerful, resonating with an intensity that even the Krex could feel. "Commander, the humans are vocalizing," an officer reported, his tone tinged with confusion. Zorvac watched the battlefield from the bridge. He saw humans marching into position, weapons at the ready, their voices growing louder. The songs weren't chaotic, as he had assumed. They were coordinated, synchronized, carrying a weight of emotion he couldn't comprehend. "Foolishness," Zorvac muttered. "Proceed with the assault." But as the Krex ground forces advanced, the singing intensified. Soldiers sang ancient chants, military hymns, and even personal songs of home. Their voices didn't falter, even as explosions rained down around them. Instead, the sound seemed to grow stronger, as if the music itself was a shield against fear. For the first time in his career, Zorvac felt something foreign prickling at the edge of his consciousness. Doubt. The Krex assault began with precision and ferocity, their orbital cannons striking military installations and communication hubs across Earth. The first wave of ground forces landed shortly after, sleek spider-like exosuits gliding across the terrain with eerie silence. The Krex soldiers moved as a single entity, their neural connections ensuring flawless coordination. They expected the human defenses to crumble quickly, their disorganized resistance swept aside in moments. But the humans didn't scatter. They stood firm. As the Krex advanced, the sound of singing grew louder, reverberating across the battlefield. The melodies were not random. They carried rhythm, purpose, and defiance. From the safety of his command center, Commander Zorvac observed this strange phenomenon with growing irritation. "What are they doing?" he demanded. "Analysis ongoing, Commander," an officer replied. "The sounds are unsettling." Their voices lack precision but evoke significant emotional resonance. On the battlefield, Krex soldiers encountered human units who fought not with panic but with unshakable resolve. The songs came from everywhere: soldiers, loudspeakers, even vehicles equipped with amplifiers. The tunes varied. Some were steady and methodical, others fierce and primal. The humans sang in unison, their voices forming a wall of sound that seemed to fuel their movements and sharpen their focus. The Krex, by contrast, began to falter. Their neural network, designed for perfect synchronization, struggled to adapt to the chaotic noise. Orders were delayed, and movements became clumsy. The singing disrupted the precision the Krex relied upon, introducing an unpredictable variable into their otherwise flawless strategy. Zorvak's claws tapped the edge of his command console. Adjust tactics. Isolate their sound sources. Neutralize them. The Krex forces redirected their efforts, targeting human amplifiers and groups of singers. But each time they silenced one, another rose to take its place. The humans were relentless, their voices unyielding even under heavy fire. The songs seemed to inspire them, pushing their endurance to superhuman levels. Wounded soldiers refused to retreat, their voices joining the chorus even as they fought through pain. Zorvak stared at the live feed of the battlefield, his usually unshakable confidence waning. "They're defying logic," he muttered. One of his officers turned to him hesitantly. "Commander, the vocalizations appear to have a disruptive effect on our neural systems. The harmonic frequencies are interfering with communication and tactical coordination." "Impossible," Zorvak snapped, though he had noticed the same. He watched as a Krex unit stumbled, its movements erratic, before being overwhelmed by a human charge. The singing grew louder, drowning out the mechanical hum of Krex weaponry. For the first time, the Krex soldiers began to retreat. It wasn't a strategic withdrawal but a reaction born of something they had never experienced before: unease. The human songs carried an emotional weight that the Krex could neither comprehend nor withstand. The battlefield, once a stage for their domination, was now an arena of chaos where their superiority meant nothing. Zorvak clenched his claws as the humans surged forward, their voices relentless. He had underestimated them. Worse, he had underestimated the power of something he couldn't explain. Fear began to creep into his calculations. In the days leading up to the invasion, Earth's brightest minds had worked tirelessly to find any advantage against the Krex. Their technology was superior, their tactics flawless, and their numbers overwhelming. Humanity couldn't match them in firepower, but human ingenuity had always thrived under pressure. Amid countless strategies and simulations, an unusual idea surfaced: weaponize human culture itself. Scientists and military psychologists had studied the Krex for years. The alien species relied on hyper-advanced neural networks for communication and coordination, but these systems were fragile when exposed to specific disruptions. Humanity's chaotic and emotional behaviors, though baffling to the Krex, held the key to exploiting this vulnerability. The solution was found in music, specifically, singing. Throughout human history, singing had been a tool of unity and resilience. Ancient tribes used chants to rally their warriors. Soldiers in every era had marched into battle to cadences, their voices synchronizing their steps and steeling their resolve. Music bridged gaps between cultures, carried stories of survival, and sparked revolutions. More importantly, recent research revealed its physiological effects: increased heart rates, heightened focus, and a surge of endorphins that diminished fear. Human leaders decided to turn this cultural quirk into a weapon. They didn't just train soldiers to fight, they trained them to sing. Military units memorized specific chants and songs that combined powerful rhythms with frequencies designed to disrupt Krex neural links. Loudspeakers were calibrated to amplify these harmonics across battlefields, ensuring that every soldier's voice carried as far as possible. When the invasion began, the strategy was implemented immediately. Soldiers were instructed to sing not just for tactical reasons but for themselves. The songs gave them courage, reminding them of their humanity and the stakes of the fight. As explosions rocked the ground and Krex forces descended in their sleek exosuits, the voices of human soldiers rose above the chaos, unifying them in defiance. On the battlefield, the effects were undeniable. The Krex, who thrived on precision and order, struggled to maintain their usual efficiency. Their neural connections wavered, commands arriving late or garbled. Some units froze entirely, unable to process the flood of discordant signals. Krex soldiers found themselves distracted, their movements slowing as the songs invaded their minds. For the humans, the singing became a lifeline. Soldiers who might have otherwise succumbed to fear found themselves emboldened. The melodies carried memories of home, loved ones, and a world worth fighting for. Injured fighters refused to retreat, their voices blending with their comrades as they pushed forward. The songs turned the battlefield into something more than a place of death; it became a symbol of resilience. Back on the Krex flagship, Commander Zorvac watched in disbelief as his forces faltered. The humans, vastly outmatched, were driving them back with what should have been meaningless noise. The logical systems that governed Krex strategy were failing to account for something they couldn't quantify: emotion. Zorvac realized that this wasn't just a tactic, it was a declaration of humanity's greatest strength. The battlefield was chaos, but not the kind the Krex had expected. Their ground units, once unstoppable in their efficiency, now moved with hesitation, their neural systems overwhelmed by the relentless human singing. The harmony and defiance in the voices seemed to tear through their ranks like an invisible weapon. Human soldiers pushed forward, their songs unbroken even as the air filled with the crackle of gunfire and explosions. In the orbiting flagship, Commander Zorvac stood motionless, his dark eyes fixed on the screens displaying the battlefield. His officers were silent, their neural connections burdened with fragmented data and garbled reports. What he saw was unprecedented. The humans, weaker in every measurable way, were winning. Not through superior firepower, not through tactics, but through something he had dismissed as meaningless noise. "Commander, our units are retreating," an officer finally reported. There was a tremor in his voice, a hint of something the Krex had never experienced: fear. "Order them to hold their positions," Zorvac demanded, though he knew it was futile. On the ground, Krex soldiers abandoned their posts, their once perfect coordination shattered. Some collapsed outright, their neural links unable to handle the interference. Others dropped their weapons, overwhelmed by the cacophony of human voices. As the Krex forces fell back, the humans surged forward. Their songs grew louder, filling the battlefield with a resonance that was impossible to ignore. The melodies weren't just noise, they were alive with emotion: grief, hope, anger, love. Each note seemed to carry the weight of humanity's history, a collective story of struggle and survival. The Krex, who had never understood the need for such things, found themselves utterly unprepared to face it. Zorvac clenched his claws, his mind racing for answers. The Krex had always relied on logic, on the predictability of their foes, but these humans defied every calculation. They were chaotic, unpredictable, and infuriatingly resilient. Worse, they wielded their emotions not as a weakness, but as a weapon. "Commander, we must withdraw," another officer said, his tone almost pleading. "Our forces cannot withstand this phenomenon." For a moment, Zorvac hesitated. Retreat was unthinkable, a concept foreign to the Krex doctrine. Yet the evidence was undeniable. He gave the order, his voice cold but heavy with unspoken frustration. As the Krex ships began to ascend, leaving behind their shattered ground forces, the humans erupted in cheers, their songs shifting to ones of victory. The battlefield, scarred and smoking, echoed with triumphant melodies that seemed to reach even the silent expanse of space. In the flagship's observation deck, Zorvac stared at the retreating planet. He replayed the scenes in his mind, the humans standing together, their voices unwavering, their emotions raw and unfiltered. For the first time in his existence, he felt a sliver of something he couldn't name. It wasn't respect, nor was it fear. It was something deeper, more unsettling. "We underestimated them," Zorvac admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. In the silence that followed, he realized the humans had taught him something no other species ever had. Their strength wasn't in their technology or their numbers, but in their ability to turn chaos into unity, emotion into power. And as the faint echoes of their songs lingered in his mind, he knew this was only the beginning.